The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, Season 20, Episode 14. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break Live from Oxnard, California. We are rolling through training camp. Actually, today is the midpoint. It is exactly halfway between the time we arrived and the time that we will leave. So we're moving through this thing, and Cowboys actually get started with their preseason this weekend. So it'll start getting a little more interesting rather than just kind of being Groundhog's Day around here in Oxnard. We are presented by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. See why at lg.com/OLED Evo. All right, here's what we're going to do today. We are going to first start with some transactions that the Cowboys made, and right on cue, we got our guys out here making sure.
And he's going to park it right there.
They are making sure that these players have a good feel to be able to practice. I had someone on Twitter ask me, why are y'all telling them to stop it? I'm like, yeah, man, we are not the priority. The podcast is not the priority.
Not at all.
Having these guys on a field where we don't have ACLs getting busted every day is the priority. So do what you need to do. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
All right. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about some transactions today that Cowboys made. We'll get into some practice observations, some things you guys have seen over the last couple practices. And then we'll talk a little bit about a couple different things. I have a couple different topics, one of them being the safety position. I think that's one position we have not spent a lot of time talking about. So I want to dive into that a little bit at some point in today's show. Let's start with transactions. Yesterday, Cowboys signed 3 players, and they moved CeeDee Lamb to reserved. Did not report. My assumption is that was more of just a move. You needed a roster spot. You make the move. Not necessarily indicative of anything going on with contracts. Is that how you guys read it?
Yeah, I see it that way. I mean, it could, if they felt like a CeeDee Lamb deal could get done by the end of the week, then maybe they don't make that kind of move, but this is starting to trend more towards a thing that I feel like happens by the end of camp. And if that's the case, then that's one extra body that they could have here at training camp. And so that's what they do. They wanted to bring in 3 guys on the defensive side of the ball. They were able to do that yesterday by moving Lamb to that did not report list. I mean, if you think about it, this is something they could have done maybe at the beginning of camp, but, with the way the negotiations are going on, it seems that the team is comfortable pushing that out, and maybe if he doesn't return until the camp is over, then they're okay with doing that.
I'm starting to get antsy because, yes, this move doesn't mean anything in the sense of, if he was to sign today or whatever, they'll bring him in and they're going to make a spot for him and room for him, obviously. But at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's not happening today, or maybe not tomorrow, or maybe not this weekend, because you do need the bodies. But it's, we thought it was going to happen last week, I felt like, and it's still, people keep asking on Twitter and everything, and I haven't heard anything. I don't think you guys have, unless y'all did last night at the party.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Got some scoop, the inside
what
scoop.
happens at Nobu stays at Nobu.
Come on, bring what the fans want on the show. Brian, have you heard anything?
I'm with this crew. I was at the party last night. I'll tell you this, when you start needing to worry is when it turns into game checks. Because the way the rules fall down, if you look at what Lamb makes, he could lose $1 million a game. And so all of a sudden now you start missing games. Right now you're in that phase where you're getting fined, but they can all rescind the fines. We talked about that a bunch. So I think they're working through things right now. To me, it's more about, you have an idea what the numbers are going to be with the parameters. Where are they going to fall? How close can you get him to the top receiver? Obviously the Cowboys, they don't want to reset the market. That's something I've always found with Stephen Jones and Adam Pacific and those guys. If you come in at or under, they seem to work those numbers a little bit better, and it makes them feel better about what they're doing here. So, but when you start missing games, that's when it becomes, I think, very, very serious here.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that – I don't think they're going to get to that point, but heck, we this thing has kind of gone on a little bit longer than I thought it would myself.
Yeah, I get the suspicion that it's not necessarily the number, and when I say the number, the average that he makes per year. I don't think that's really probably what's driving or slowing this thing down. The fact of the matter is, when you're talking about a deal like this, there's a lot of other factors of how you structure the deal that will affect cash flow, that will affect how the Cowboys pay it out, that will affect how it will hit the salary cap over the next several years. I suspect that that's probably more what holds this up, because I think everybody sees the writing on the wall.
Right.
You know what the numbers probably are, just because you know where he slots relative to other receivers around the NFL.
Yeah.
So I don't, it's one of those things, like, that's the hard part of this, is when you start getting into the details and making sure all that can work, not only for CD, but also for the Cowboys and what they have to do with Dak, what they got to do with maybe Micah, or presumably Micah, and everybody else that's coming up in these next couple of years when it comes to new deals.
Yeah, this is the Heat, to me, when you look at Lamb, and people always say, when you give a guy a contract, are you expecting? What do you expect? He's gotten better every year.
Yeah, he has.
So when you start to look at the players around the league at wide receiver, he fits in with those guys. When you start to talk about the best receivers, he is one of those guys, and he's gotten better every single year he plays. And as a front office, you're thinking, if you give a guy a contract, you don't want it to be 2 years in and then all of a sudden we're eating dead money at the end of it. You want a guy that's making, is every year it's going, okay, hey, yes, he's earning this. And CeeDee Lamb, to me, is that type of guy. He is that guy that if you watch him play, he has gotten better. Now there's people out there who say, well, wait, Broadus, what happened in the playoff games? What are we doing? I mean, there's a lot of things in the playoffs you can talk about this football team. It's just not CeeDee Lamb. But to me, if I'm looking at the front office aspect of it, I'm looking at it as like, hey, guys, it doesn't take long to call the roll. He's in a room where he's very comparable to guys playing at a very, very high level.
Yeah.
You know what drives me nuts? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, you got it.
I was going to say just real quick, what drives me nuts is, and again, I don't work in that room. I don't deal with contracts. So I understand that it can be very, very complex. But at the same time, this was expected. Dak's contract coming up, CD's, Micah's coming up next. Kind of what those numbers are going to look like. Sure, you were waiting to see what other players were going to get, but you have an idea. So it drives me crazy knowing what they did not do during the offseason because of cap money, and they were unable to do. And then we're sitting here at this point where it is getting closer and closer to the season, and I understand how valuable, and obviously they do too, how valuable it is to have CD out here. We know it's going to take up a ramp-up period. Nick, you talked about it the other day. We know what that's going to look like, but we also know how that can hurt the team as far as like when the season actually starts and all of that. So it's always wild when we're sitting here this far into camp talking about contracts, because you know what's coming,
Yeah, and I think an interesting part to just the entire negotiation factors are the little nuances, and those nuances change every time that another receiver gets done, or the rumors start swirling about another receiver getting done. So let's just look at this week, for example. Let's say they started the week with an understanding of where both sides were at the negotiation. One side maybe feels optimistic or upbeat, as Stephen Jones has said a couple of times. And then a deal like Tyreek Hill gets done, where he didn't necessarily add more money, but he got more guaranteed money than any receiver in NFL history. So you add that nuance into the entire negotiation. Yep. That adds a whole different
Start
layer.
over, right?
Yeah, and then now you're looking at this Brandon Ayuk situation. Does CeeDee Lamb and his representation fall back and say, hey, let's kind of see what happens here? Because there's the Steelers that are trying to make an offer for him, the Patriots, the Browns, and if he were to get traded, then they sign an extension for him as well, and that's in the same draft class, and that probably impacts more than what Tyreek Hill could have impacted as far as the nuances of this deal. So there's so many different factors and different players that are involved within these two sides of the negotiation as well.
Yeah, you got a team in this Brandon Ayuk thing, and I was talking to my buddies in San Francisco about it yesterday, and they're like, listen, whichever way this goes, we've got this thing covered. Whatever comes back in compensation now, and you're right about Brandon Ayuk. I mean, if he ends up in New England, there's a team that needs weapons. There's a team that's willing to pay. There's a team that, again, how the Hill situation, Ayuk, I mean, everybody's waiting to see, and it seems like maybe you make some steps forward in this negotiation, and then some other thing gets thrown into the mix that totally, well, wait a minute, we didn't think about this. Well, wait a minute, we had a deal. Well, no, we don't have a deal now because we just got some new information. So the front office is chasing a lot of that right now.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do to come up with these deals. And like I said, there's a lot of different fronts when you're talking about a deal like this. It's not just the overall money. There's a lot of other factors that go into it, how it has to be structured, and I think that's a lot of what's going on here. All right, let's talk about the guys that they signed. Give me a rundown on linebacker Darius Harris, defensive tackle Albert Huggins, and linebacker Nick Vigil.
Yeah, if I could, I'll start with Nick Vigil, a third-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals back in 2016. So at the time, current Cowboys defensive run game coordinator Paul Guenther was the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. And so he was his coach for 2 years. And then later in his career, Nick Vigil had a season with Mike Zimmer up in Minnesota in 2021. So a lot of experience and knowledge of the system Nick Vigil has coming in here. Had started 12 games, accounted for 85 tackles in that season with the Vikings back in 2021. He had an injury that he battled in 2022, and it kind of resorted him to the practice squad of the Vikings in 2023. But nevertheless, it's another guy in the building that knows the system, can help bring these young guys up to speed. And then Albert Huggins, 6'3", 305-pound defensive tackle. I know Brian will probably talk a little bit more about his alignment. I feel like he's more fit to be a 3-tech, maybe to rotate in with Osa Odighizuwa. But 5 seasons he's been in the NFL, 5 different teams that he's played for. Ooh. So this would be team number 6 for him. But he started in 5 games for the Atlanta Falcons last season and accounted for 22 tackles. By far the most action he's participated in his NFL career. So coming off of a lot of experience. He also had a very brief stint with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota back in 2020 on the practice squad. And then Darius Harris, he spent 4 seasons with the Kansas City Chiefs, undrafted linebacker out of Middle Tennessee State in 2019. He participated in 33 games. His best season came in 2022. He played in all 17 games and racked up 43 tackles. So pretty good to have a 2-time Super Bowl champ on your roster as well.
Yeah, let's do this real quick, Brian. I want to take our break. When we come back, I'm going to have Brian give us a scouting report on these 3 guys. I know you've watched all 3. And give us some insight as to what you think they can provide for this team. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
Life doesn't stop when the economy is uncertain. The market might not care you have a wedding to plan or a kid to put through school. And inflation doesn't know you've got a family to feed. But Bank of America does and is here to help, With digital tools to help you save and local experts nearby, you can keep life moving forward the way you need it to. Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Learn more at bankofamerica.com. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, Equal Credit Opportunity Lender.
Back to the break.
AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break live from Oxnard, California. This segment brought to you by blockchain.com.
Ding!
All right, so Brian, as we were going to break, we had mentioned the 3 guys that the Cowboys signed. Give us some scouting reports on these players.
Yeah, I'll start with Virgil, and he's kind of been a guy that's when you watch him play, maybe a career special teams guy. With his mainly, that's how he's always kind of stayed on teams. First off, I was a little bit surprised that they were bringing in linebackers. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you guys feel watching practice. I kind of felt like that this room has shown up at linebacker a little bit, and it to me, maybe it might be like they're not getting what they want out of these guys special teams wise, his bones kind of, because if you look at Virgil and you also look at Harris, kind of guys that play a lot of special teams and play on all different special teams. So maybe it's like, okay, guys that know what we're going to do, how we're going to play, how we're going to line up, but give you that ability to block, that the return ability and all that. So
can I throw this out, just a question for you?
Yeah.
You think maybe it's partially because they like a lot of their linebackers? A lot of them, they may say, we don't necessarily want to play them in the preseason. Somebody like Overshown, you would think is going to play a lot in the preseason, but because of the injury, they may not. And they're like, we need bodies to be able to play these games.
I'm interested to ask.
Yeah.
Because it's not an area. If you're bringing in defensive tackles, I understand. If they were to bring in secondary help, I would go, why? Or the linebacker help, why? So that's what you do today is you try and go up and ask somebody like, okay, what was the thought about, the linebackers here? And to your point, I don't have a great answer for you because that's not a position I would have attacked.
Yeah.
I would have thought, okay, I've got some young guys here. I want to see them play, but I don't know. It was surprising to me. But when you start to talk about with Virgil and what he's done, he plays really as an inside linebacker, and that's more than, you think, oh, well, is he a Mike or is he a Will, Sam? More of a Sam linebacker. The thing about him is he's an aware player. He's a good tackler in open space. There were a couple of times where the ball got thrown and he got put in coverage, and the ball went to the outside, and it was like a third down play, 3rd and short, and they throw it to the flat to the back, and he immediately makes the tackle for no gain, and now you're like off the field. So that part of it was, when you look at him, you could put him in coverage. He's an aware player. He uses his hands well from what I saw, getting rid of blockers. There were a couple of times where guys came on him. He was able to engage and then get rid of the guy and then still find the football. I'd like to see a little bit better burst from him. There were some times where you could tell that everybody else was moving and he was moving, but there wasn't that, like, you'll see these guys out here, like if you watch Clark and those guys, they cover some ground when they're running to chase the football. So I'd like to see a little bit better, a better burst from him that way. But the strike as a tackler is good. I don't see a lot of quickness with the guy, which is, again, something you see out here with these linebackers. There is some guys that can run. There's some, like, when they read it, they go. He's a little bit of a guy that when he sees it, he's going to go. But I think that's his strength right now, is his awareness to be able to play the position and get over and then make the play. But he is a really, really good tackler. I think he's going to be a rotational linebacker for him here, and the special team stuff that I mentioned. So, and then you get to Darius Harris. I watched him quite a bit on special teams as well, just because I was curious about him. He's got some size to him. He's got some quickness off the ball, unlike with what you have with Virgil there. I'd like to see him adjust a little bit better in space. That was something that when you watch him play, he's kind of a bigger guy, and it was like he was not unsure, but it was like the ball was here and he was having to, and then come back, but there was not that quick processing to it. It was like, oh, there it is. Now I got to get it. I like to see him play a little bit better that way. I think his straight ahead speed is really good. The lateral stuff, not so much. I think but he's one of those guys that if it's attacking, he's going to be good that way with it. So special teams, rotational linebacker kind of fits into what you're doing without it's got the size but doesn't have the quickness or the burst that these guys have right now. Albert Huggins, I mentioned I watched the games where he was playing the defensive tackle. The Packers game was one of the games. He plays both as a nose and as a 3 technique. You're right, Nick. I think he's a little bit probably more of a 3 than this, but he does have some lateral slide to his game. You see him. Maybe they're trying to kind of figure out a backup spot for Oso Digizwa out here. Yeah. Is it Golston? If all of a sudden Huggins works out, you can move Golston maybe to another spot. So that might be what we're trying to do here. But he does have quickness. He'll hold the point of attack. There's some squareness to his game. And when I say squareness, he'll take on. You don't see he's wearing number 94. You didn't see him get turned or moved out of the hole that way. So, but, there were times where they kind of were where he was able to get down the line of scrimmage. He beat the cutoff blocks, the reach blocks. He can get kind of trapped in one area. So, you want to see maybe a little bit better extend and then a little bit better of getting rid of the guy. But you see him upfield, and he wins upfield. I'd like to see a little bit more better awareness of the down block. Like he would engage, and then he wouldn't feel the block coming. A lot of these guys could feel that and know that and work around that block. And he kind of got blocked. When it was that down block, he was kind of taking that on. And I'm like, man, how many times are you going to get hit in the side before you realize they're down blocking you in this game? So I think he'll be a good addition to trying to figure out, can he play a little 1 and help him, but can he play that 3 and maybe be behind Osa, and then allows them to move Golston to another spot.
That's good stuff. All right, let's move on. Let's get some practice notes. Over the last couple practices, let's go down the line. Tell me some things that you noticed, some things jumped out at you. Amber, let's start with you.
Well, can I go on a quick rant real fast?
Absolutely. Like I'm going to say no, or like
you're going to go on a rant about my scouting reports?
No.
Like 3 tech. Come on, Brian.
No, but
yeah, why are you bringing a 3 tech in here?
So every year, we get excited before the season starts and blah blah blah. But been there, done that. In my case, I've learned my lesson type of thing. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna get excited about nothing. Y'all better show me in the playoffs, not during the, So, but the Cowboys tend to have some spark that they work their magic, and I'm a victim again. That I'm about to jump on the roller coaster, but there's something that is really, really exciting. The other day on the other show, Brian, you mentioned Mike Zimmer.
Yeah.
And what he's been doing with the defense. To me, the more and more I watch, the more and more excited I get, because it's such a different look than what we are used to seeing with the Cowboys defense in recent years. The way that he's disguising guys, plays, and just the trick aspect where you would watch other teams do things like that, and we're like, why can't we ever have that? Why can't we ever, I can't think of the word, but just tricking the eye.
Yeah.
What's the
Deception.
word?
Misconception.
Deception.
Exactly.
Misconception or deception. Yeah, there you go. Deception. That's the better word.
Both. But anyway,
Inception.
The point is, what
or
he's
misinformation.
doing, what he's doing right now with all of that, it's such a different look. I think it's going to be very, very exciting for fans to see, for us to watch this season, and it's allowing guys to be positioned better, to allow them to be more explosive and more creative and get to the place where they need to be. And I think the defense, yesterday's practice, they had a really good day. The everything that they did, they won. In my opinion, they won the day. They were the better group yesterday, and everyone's looking. It's just exciting. And I got a chance to talk to Trevon Diggs, and I asked him, hey, you've been standing on the sidelines for quite a while. who's a guy that's been standing out to you? And he mentioned Khalil Carson. He's a guy that he's really quick, very, very good with his footwork, his handwork, and when you watch him on field, aside from what happens on here, when you go into the film room and start watching what he's doing, he's a guy to look for, and he's been very, very impressive.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to piggyback off that with another corner that I think is just having a phenomenal camp, and that's Jordan Lewis.
Gosh darn it.
Man, looking at what he's been able to do over the course of these couple of weeks, man, he's been phenomenal. And I think that there's a couple of things that play into that. It's different than last camp for him in the sense that he's been healthy the whole offseason. He's been able to improve this whole offseason instead of, trying to get healthy and trying to make it in time for training camp. There's a different mindset that I think plays into that. And then, last year he was just getting comfortable being on the field again after that Lisfranc injury to his foot that was career-threatening at one point. But you see that confidence, not only in his body but with his ability. The way he ended the season last year, the Detroit game really sticks out to me as a game that he really stood out in. But just yesterday, diving interception of Dak Prescott. It was the first one that Dak has thrown since they've been in pads. And then he had another one in the corner of the end zone that he went up with one hand and could have brought it down but just missed it. He's all over the place. You see the physicality that's starting to come back with Jordan Lewis, and that's what we saw at the end of the year last year. So he's just taking where he left off in 2023 and moving it right into 2024. Really loved that. And then one other thing that I'll point out from yesterday's practice specifically is they did a session with goal line work, and they were throwing in a different array of running backs trying to get those 1-2 yards to get into the end zone, and the defense was a stonewall. I think they got him 3 consecutive reps, which was really huge for that defensive unit, and you could see, whenever they were making those stops, you could see how much confidence was being built on that defensive side of the ball. So if you're worried about interior defensive line like I am, then that's definitely a positive mark you could look at.
I'll tell you what, you're absolutely right about Jordan Lewis. Had a defensive holding penalty. We had the referees out here.
Right.
Don't worry.
We'll take our wins where we get them.
But I was kind of thinking. I was trying to think who was going to get the first defensive holding penalty because these guys will. I thought it was a good day overall, and I think you're absolutely right about Jordan Lewis. In the player personnel trailer over there, they're watching film at night, and they're trying to figure out how to get Jalen Cropper on this team. Is what they're trying to do. He's making them at wide receiver in that room have to think about how many receivers are we going to carry. Are we going to be able to carry 6? Do we carry 5? How is this going to play out? He continues to make play after play, and it doesn't matter what group. He could run with the 1s, he makes plays. He runs with the 2s, he makes plays. He runs with the 3s, he makes plays. It just seems like every time that you hear Bones Fossil, it's 3rd and 4, it's 4th and 3. They throw the ball to 16, and it's a first down. Or they get down in tight red zone, and he's able to separate. He is making it very difficult. Keep an eye on him, especially this weekend, if it turns into, or maybe all the preseason games. How does he function on special teams? Because all of a sudden, if you see and you notice number 16, he's going to have to make his team being a complete guy. I don't think he could just be catcher guy but he is making that group over there in that personnel trailer have to think about keeping a spot on this roster for him.
Yep. I'll throw out a name, and it's a guy that's a name that everybody knows, and quite frankly, I just over the last 2 practices, I've started noticing him more. It's Zeke Elliott. He is not a guy, obviously at running back, it's hard at training camp to really see things from running backs, even linebackers that really impress me because the primary function of both of their jobs don't happen out here. Running backs don't break tackles out here. Yeah. Linebackers don't tackle out here. So you're not going to really find out a lot about them until you get into the real games. But what I've seen from Zeke that made me a little more excited is he has a little more wiggle than I think I thought he still had at this point in his career. I thought of him more as just kind of a guy that was kind of find the hole and kind of get into it. But he's been out here. He's been a little more spry over the last couple practices, and that made me it did pique my interest to make me see just where do I think he's gonna be and what he can possibly be for this team this season. He did have, as we keep saying, he had a better second half of the year last year than first half. And could this be a situation where you really can get some really good production out of Zeke Elliott? I'm starting to get a little more excited about that at this point, just seeing some of the things I've seen out here in the last couple days.
Rico Dowdle isn't backing up either now. I mean, backing up in a way of like, okay, Zeke, it's all yours. I think that Rico's trying to put, and I know that they're working Zeke, and you mentioned a couple days you are seeing. I felt like in the early practices we really weren't seeing Zeke.
I agree, yeah.
And I remember Todd Archer and I were talking like, is he practicing? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't feel like he is. Mm-hmm. But you're right, you are seeing a little bit more from him in that regard. But I don't think Rico Dowdle is going to just give him this job.
Yeah.
They'll probably say, okay, you could be the guy, they're probably the front office. Okay, you're Zeke, you're going to. But Rico Dowdle is making it interesting too, as well, that the way he's kind of playing with some complete the running ability, catching the ball, and then some of the blitz pickup stuff as well.
And I think regardless of how the depth chart stacks up, Rico Dowdle is going to have more opportunities than he had last year in this offense, just based on
his health
dynamics.
is always the question.
For sure.
That if you told me, this is going to sound crazy, you told me he was going to be healthy for 17 weeks. He's a better player right now than Ezekiel Elliott.
I agree with that. I think he's the best running back on the team.
He is. He's a better player right now. If you said, okay, we are going to have to run the football, and I'm not ever against putting the things in Dak Prescott's hands because he was what you saw last year. I don't want him throwing the ball 45 times a game, but I will say this though. The guy that seems to give me a little bit of like, okay, maybe this running game can average 4 yards, 4.5 yards a carry. I kind of feel like that's Rico Dowdle right now. And this room has still got me a little bit. Is there somebody else? Is there somebody else out there?
I still feel like they just have 3 RB2s that they're just going to throw on the
I
field.
don't disagree with you on that, but I think the thing with Rico Dowdle, if I didn't have this injury concern in my head, I would totally say he could put the equipment on the wagon and let him pull the wagon.
But here's the thing: I think if they can get solid production out of Zeke, which is why I've been happy with what I've seen these last couple of days. If they can get solid production from Zeke, and what you say about Rico, and what they like about Hunter Lipke, because I think he will have a different role than just a traditional fullback.
Right.
He'll get some carries in there too. I think now this running back room is starting to I'm starting to get an image in my mind of what it can be and how it could possibly work. Again, everything has to work out. Like, you don't have a lot of room for error here. But if everything works out, I'm starting to get a vision for what it can be.
If you told me it was Rico Dowdle, Hunter Lipke, and Turpin mixed in, I think I can find a way to run the football.
Yeah.
I think I can. But again, it has to be about the tight ends, and it has to be how things play out. Because I completely trust Smith, and I trust Martin. Steele, we got to, he's trying to work his way back into things, but they've got to have some better point of attack blocking from these Titans. They got to figure out somebody that can handle that role.
All right, let's go ahead and take our final break. We will come back in just a second. We'll get into a couple more topics that we want to hit here before we end the show. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing at Brian. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We had this conversation last night over
You're doing a great
cocktails.
job.
How terrible I am reading this. Go ahead. They're a wonderful company. We're glad to have them.
This is like watching Drew Bledsoe just see Tom Brady drive down the field. You know?
Right.
Gosh.
Go ahead,
Don't
Amber,
take
sorry.
our word for it.
Don't.
Do not.
Don't.
Digital
Especially
Trends
mine.
said the LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See it for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Welcome back.
I owe you lunch, AG, for that.
Hey,
Well,
maybe
that's
you and I'll go eat ramen.
You know what we
one
need to do?
night.
We need to be like, okay, Brian, that's a good deal. Why don't you make us some gumbo?
Yeah.
Like, throw that out
you know
there.
what? I got a
some
kitchen.
gumbo or some chili. Either one. Either one.
I got. Which would you rather have? Anybody allergic to seasoning or anything like that? We all
Absolutely
good?
not.
I eat what you make.
All right,
so.
we'll make some.
I just don't eat pork. That's the only thing.
Okay, no pork.
Welcome back. Final segment of the show.
You're not
Live
having
from
gumbo
Oxnard,
then.
California.
I was like,
I was
chicken
literally
sausage,
thinking, like,
beef
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That's going to work.
I'll
we
make you
appreciate
some
guys
Fruit
joining
Loops.
us. We got a few minutes here before the show ends, so I did want to get some updates on some of the guys that are coming back from injury. There were two in particular that last season I thought, or last preseason I thought, were turning a lot of heads. They both had ACL injuries. They both missed the season. They are both back now and practicing really from the beginning of camp. They've been out there. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys have seen from DeMarvion Overshone and from John Stevens.
Yeah, I'll start with John Stevens. He's bigger.
Have you not seen anything from Overshone?
Say that again.
Have you not seen anything?
Oh,
from
I have
Overshone?
seen from Overshone. I just figured I'd let you have Overshone down there.
Oh, go ahead and take Overshone if you want, because
okay,
I'm kind of
okay,
yeah. Go ahead.
I'll take both. I'll start with John Stevens Jr. He's definitely bigger, and that was the first thing we saw whenever he started to get on the cords with Britt Brown during minicamp, and we see him out there on the field, and it's like, goodness, who's that? And it's like, oh, it's John Stevens. Like he's just bigger now. We were able to talk to him a couple weeks ago. 12, 13 pounds of added mass that he's added, so he's starting to factor into that tight end position a little bit more rather than the receiver experience that he had from college at Louisiana Lafayette. But the thing with him, he's having the dropsies a little bit out here at camp. That being said, you still see the route tree on display. Yeah. You still see his ability to be a receiving tight end at the end of the day. I think these preseason games will be really big for him at the very end of it, because if he can show that he has some point of attack ability, not necessarily the best on the roster, but some point of attack ability, and he can pair that with a 3, 4, 5 catch game and connect with Cooper Rush, connect with Trey Lance, then I think he ends up finding a roster spot. I do. And then with DeMarvion Overshone, man, he's like a bat out of hell. I mean, every time that he's hitting the field, he's trying to go 1,010%. And it was funny because after the first day that he hit the field, Mike McCarthy was like, yeah, he maybe went a little bit too hard. His GPS numbers and analytics data came back a little too high than we want. So from me, what I see from him, I see communication. I see him playing different roles. Even when Eric Kendricks has been out of practice, he's been asked to do a couple of different things, and he's shined in those roles. I think him and Maris Luafau are going to be a really fun duo as time goes on, and that's not to factor out Damone Clark, because I think he's a part of that young group as well. But on that same token, Overshone, I think he has that youth that he just attacks the field with, and that's really great to see coming off of a torn ACL. He still has that attack ability, and I think that's going to translate onto the field on Sunday.
Yeah, real quick, when you mentioned Damone Clark, I think it's all of us probably are like, you think of him and you think veteran. Yeah, he's a young guy. I mean, he really is relevant. And to say he came into the NFL already injured, came back from injury much faster than any of
Yeah.
us thought.
Yeah.
Like, he is just a young guy.
I didn't know if he was going to play again.
Yeah. I mean, he is a young guy, and I'm very excited about him just because of the things I'm seeing out here. But more importantly, just thinking about the fact he's still got a long runway. He really does.
He had availability the other day. I believe it was on Monday, and I asked him. I was like, "Okay, you have this veteran in the room, and Eric Kendricks, that's really helped bringing you along. It's a great mentor for you, but at the same time, there's so many young guys in the room that you're kind of having a mentor and help, kind of teach the Cowboy way in a way." I was like, "Do you kind of feel like the middle child in the room?" And he was like, "Yeah, I actually do. That's actually
sense.
yeah." So he's the guy that I think can benefit from both areas of it. He can benefit from learning from Kendricks. He can benefit from teaching these young guys.
So with Overshown, for me, when he was a rookie last year. When if there's a guy that's a rookie, they get hurt, they come back, there's still the lack of experience there. They're still like, okay, this is gonna be the 1 year or 2 year player type of deal. But with him, you can tell that he has done the work despite of him being injured and out all this time. You can tell he's been studying. He has not missed a beat. I thought it would take some time for him to slowly start transitioning back into the groove and all of that. But no, he looks like he was out there last year. Like he doesn't look like he just came back from an injury. He looks great. His attitude, it's amazing. I love you guys know I always talk about energy and vibes and all that. He got all the right vibes and all the right attitude. So I'm super excited to see him playing actual football in a real game outside of practice. And then for John Stevens, he's a guy that caught many eyes last training camp, and we were all excited. Very unfortunate injury, but similar to what you were mentioning, Nick, I mean, to me right now, I haven't seen a whole lot from him. So still, I think mentally the injury may be kind of affecting him a little bit more than with Overshown, but I think he's going to put in the work, and I'm excited as well to see him in the preseason. I think he has the talent, but it's just going to take him maybe a little bit longer.
I'm also trying to call back to last preseason and last training camp when it came to John Stevens Jr., and I don't feel like we really started talking about him until about this point.
It was towards
the end. That's where I'm at right now, because
Yeah.
you're right about when you watch him run the routes, you can see that he's getting confidence in his knee, the ability to get up the field, sink, to go to the outside to break and all that. For a big, tall guy, he does play with some bend. The concentration drops bother me a little bit with this guy. But I kind of felt like last year that we were talking about him, like this. Now we're kind of like, okay, well, he's kind of here right now. And so, but these guys that have come back from these knee injuries, it seems like it has taken them some time. Maybe that's something we should worry about, too, with Diggs a little bit.
Yeah.
That it wasn't Steele, Pollard, all these guys that came back from knee and injury problems, it took them a little bit time to get going.
Not just them guys around the league. This is not a Cowboys thing. This
I
is a
just
league
feel
thing.
like
It's
that
just-
we just immediately thought, Diggs is going to be an all-pro, and you're like, well, he needs to practice a little bit out here today, But with Stevens, I could see it. I can see it, and I'm looking forward to him in these preseason games and stuff. Overshown, I like what you guys are saying about Overshown. I'm kind of waiting for him to really cut it loose. Mm-hmm. He could be just as disruptive as Micah Parsons is in a practice. He could be that kind of guy. There's been some times where I was kind of like, when he's on the field, I'm thinking, okay, he's just gonna. You can watch some 9-on-7 stuff, and he'll beat some blocks, and you're like, okay. But then you get into team, and I don't feel like I see him in the teamwork as much doing those things. I do see him, so I think they're kind of trying to get him going again.
It's still a reps thing.
Yeah, he can play 6 plays and make 3 tackles.
Yeah.
That's the kind of ability he has out here. And so I've noticed Leofow a lot. I've noticed Clark a lot. I've even, we talk about Willie Harvey. I've noticed him. I mean, there's guys you're noticing. And I'm just waiting for that time where I'm watching team, and it might be in this Rams scrimmage coming up where he's just flying downhill and making every single play. Yep. But he is a really he's helped himself coming back from the injury with his physical conditioning, And that's made a big difference, I think.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for him is he does have the ability, the luxury of being able to kind of ease back in.
Right.
I think that the drafting of Leofau, I think you're right, seeing some things from him. I think Damone Clark is having as good a camp out here as almost anybody. So I think with him, and then obviously bringing in Eric Kendricks, I think you've got guys that give Overshown a little bit more of a runway to be able to get himself ready and to ease back into this thing. They're not counting on him necessarily to jump in and immediately be the top line guy here. He's got some time. He's got some ability to be able to work into it. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. So we are back on Friday. Good thing about Friday is we will be able to tell you everything that happened from the Cowboys-Rams practice. Make sure you check out all of our coverage on Thursday as well. We're going to do lots of training camp live. We're going to have, the understanding right now is we're going to have 2 different film crews on opposite sides of the field covering both parts of practice, so you'll get lots of insights on what's going on there. Till then, for Brian Broaddus, Amber Garcia, Nick Harris, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?